listening to the Agent Survival Guide podcast, a podcast for today's insurance agents. Informing, educating, empowering, improving the way you do business in an industry that's anything but static. In today's episode, stay focused and driven while you're out on the road. We've got tips to help you as you commute from appointments to events and everything in between. Ways to stay productive on the go, written by Sarah Ruppel. I think it's safe to say that we're all traveling outside of our homes and home offices these days. As we're getting used to being out and about and in transit, it's a good time for a refresher on staying organized and making sales on the go. We've got tips to optimize your workday away from the office and how agents can set themselves up for the best possible outcome. And it all starts with a little planning and organization, like most of our processes and hacks. First, set proper and realistic expectations about what you can accomplish in the time you have available. Sounds simple, right? Well, there's a reason for that saying, rule your day or your day will rule you. You've got to know your schedule each day to know what you'll have time for and what would be best left for another day. On a busy day, you probably won't have time to work on a lengthy proposal, but you can accomplish smaller tasks when you have downtime between appointments. Also, important in your planning, how accessible will you be? That information should be conveyed to those who need to get a hold of you, whether that's your upline or your downline agents. Does text messaging make sense for staying in touch? Maybe email is more realistic during a day filled with calls. Clearly detail when and how you'll be available to those who need to know and stay consistent. Next up, downsize where you can with both devices and by going digital. Rather than toting around a laptop, consider a tablet. They're more compact and make it easy to share information and capture signatures. There's also no need to lug around boxes of paperwork when most of that information is now digital. Just make sure you're prepared to work both online and offline. Circumvent limited internet access by sending important PDFs to your tablet and other mobile devices. Another way to combat spotty Wi-Fi, use a mobile hotspot. Standalone hotspot devices can be purchased from each of the major wireless carriers, or you can activate your phone's personal hotspot. Both hotspot options create a small area of Wi-Fi coverage, linking nearby Wi-Fi devices with your cell network. And even better, hotspots offer a secure connection to keep transmission of sensitive data safe as long as you use password options and don't make your devices or the hotspot available to others. Also, I can't recommend a hotspot without mentioning that using one will drain your phone's battery faster than regular use. And that brings us to another important part in our planning. Before you hit the road, make sure your devices are fully charged and properly synced. Ideally, this should happen the night before, allowing for a full charge on every device you need. If you're worried about battery life during the day, or perhaps not having access to an outlet, it might be a good idea to invest in a portable power bank. These devices are great to have as a backup, but remember, they also must be charged. Another tech tip I want to mention, be sure to sync your tablet with your phone. This is something you want to double check every time you add documents to one device. Make sure it has properly synced with all other devices so you're good to go. There are a few different ways to sync your devices. You can sync your files with a service like Dropbox, Nextcloud, or Google Drive, to name a few. Then there are also browser sync services available through popular web browsers like Firefox Sync and Google Chrome. For further info on those data syncing options, we've got the link to a Wired review in our notes. Syncing can be helpful if your tablet and smartphone run different operating systems. It's also a handy tool for when you run into a client with a question armed solely with your smartphone. Prior planning and organization will carry you a long way. Now, let's dig even further into scheduling. If you want to stay on track, create a schedule. Think of this as phase 2 of Rule Your Day. When your day is packed with appointments and meetings, it's easy to forget things. Instead, record your events into an agenda that travels with you and include notes. While I would love to say that this schedule could be just a paper planner, I'd be remiss to discount the power of digital calendars. That's a component that these days, even as much as I love my paper planner, it cannot do what a digital calendar does. With a digital calendar, you can set reminder alerts. I put reminders on a lot of things, including the alarms I set in the morning. If you're looking for a digital personal planner, one of our first Agent Apps episodes covered that very topic. Look for the to-do or not to-do lists episode in the notes. Next tip, and this is a great hack just for insurance agents. Make travel time more efficient by zoning your appointment book. Break down the geographical areas you cover into days of the week. Then, schedule your meetings and appointments for corresponding zones only on those days. When you use this method effectively, you can cut down on your mileage and time in traffic. If you want to trim your time on the road further, use a GPS system with live traffic reporting features. That's especially helpful to avoid construction delays or slowdowns because of accidents or other incidents. The other GPS feature I love is the estimated arrival time. That lets me know if I have time to stop and pick up a quick cup of coffee. Even when I'm headed somewhere I know, I will turn on my GPS for the estimated arrival time and live traffic functionality to get routed around the problem and save me from sitting in traffic. And yes, there's also an Agent Apps episode on GPS apps, also linked for you in the episode notes. One last tip on scheduling appointments. Make sure you add buffers for driving time, late starts, or running over the allotted appointment time. You'll be thankful that you gave yourself that extra cushion. Next on our list, we can't really talk about working on the road without mentioning what to take with you. Make sure to pack the right tools. We touched on some of these things earlier, but again, we're zooming in for a closer look. And odds are you know what you need to work effectively. Pack those tools and make them easily accessible. The majority of your tools should fit into one bag that you take along into each appointment. You don't want to arrive to an appointment looking like you're ready to stay for the weekend. But that being said, there are a few things you'll need to have on hand. We recommend a tablet, your smartphone, charging cables, a power bank, and of course, pen and paper because battery-free items will never fail. And it's just best practice to take notes. If you need to print forms or guides while you're out on the road, most shipping services with a storefront provide professional printing services. Places like UPS, FedEx, Staples, Office Depot, even better, a local shipping company or the local library. Now, in some cases, you might need to take along more materials than can comfortably fit into one bag. This is where the car or trunk office comes into play, but don't go overboard. A mobile car office should be a pared down version of your main office, not an exact copy with duplicates of everything. Helpful materials include a front seat organizer, storage crates for hanging folders or enrollment kits, a hanger bar to keep clothes wrinkle-free, and car charging cords for your devices. If you tend to be on the road for the majority of the day, include some non-perishable snacks like granola bars or dried fruit too. Your future hangry self will thank you later. Armed with a plan and your schedule, plus the right tools, let's talk productivity. As I mentioned earlier, always have a backup plan. A day should never be considered wasted or ruined if something drastic changes. Use that extra time to fire off a few emails or tend to administrative work. Create an anywhere task list with items that won't take long to complete and cross items off as you complete them. You can also use your digital calendar to attach locations to tasks, so you'll be reminded to tend to them at certain places, like the office of that client who's always late. Probably the biggest tip I can give is do not multitask. Only 2.5% of people can successfully multitask. Most of us think we're multitasking, but we're actually performing something called task switching. While we might quickly bounce back and forth between projects, it's still a back and forth, and that means our concentration is doing the same. Experts say that task switchers suffer from a loss in productivity as they switch to and from different tasks. It's far more effective to work on one task at a time with laser focus. Having trouble focusing but really need to get work done during a long trip or a slow afternoon? Disconnecting from Wi-Fi can be a great way to boost your productivity. Online distractions are real, and sometimes the only way to get away from them is to get rid of them. You can disable your ability to connect through your operating system or software designed specifically for productivity. Additionally, keep your email in check. It's very easy for important emails to get lost in the shuffle of junk these days. If the sheer volume of your inbox has you overwhelmed, take the time to organize it. Create folders, including a check-in folder to help you sort daily tasks. Move your emails to the folder through the day as you receive them. Then, make sure you're addressing the contents of the folder, either periodically throughout the day or at the end of the day, during a time you've allotted for checking and responding to email. You can also create a similar folder for end-of-the-week check-ins to cut down on email clutter further. Depending on what email program you use, you can create rules and automate the sorting process, sending different types of email to a selection of folders. For example, I subscribe to a lot of newsletters. Love receiving that content, but there's a time and place for reading it, so it goes in a newsletter folder. Then there are other messages that demand more immediate action. Those are sent to an action folder, depending on what the action is, certain keywords in the message, and even who has sent the message. Organizing my inbox with those rules did take some time, but I'm thankful for the help in sorting through some of that clutter. Now, my hope with this episode was to give you some tips and tricks to improve efficiency while you're commuting to and from appointments, or even flying to and from conferences. These hacks can apply to more than just sales situations. If you have a trusty hack that we did not mention, we would love to hear about it. You can get in touch with us a few different ways. By emailing us at asgpodcast@ritterim.com, or leave us a voicemail by calling 1-717-562-7211. We would love to hear from you and hear how you're making the most of your days out on the road. Thank you so much for listening. If you're not already, please consider following along with our show. You can do that where you're listening right now. Just a quick tap on that plus button and you'll be good to go. And we will see you next episode. The Agent Survival Guide podcast is a production of Ritter Insurance Marketing, an integrity company. This episode was written and produced by me, Sarah Ruppel. Script editing by Tina Lamoureux. Podcast design by Urban Rivera. Artwork by Vivian Zhao. Follow along with us wherever you like to listen. Rate and review our show on Apple or Spotify.